Some people have interpreted this anticipation of collapse as evidence that the fire department and others were planning its destruction.
Silverstein, a commercial real estate tycoon with international political connections, acquired a 99-year lease.
And the owner, Larry Silverstein, has also been accused of being part of a huge conspiracy to destroy the buildings. It all stems from a TV interview when he used the phrase, "pull it."
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull.
I ask every viewer to come to their own conclusion about the language Larry's using and the emphasis.
Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it.
My personal response to his comment is that he was involved in a decision to bring the building down. But who knows what he was thinking or saying. This is just speculation.
Critics say just 2 months before 9/11, Larry Silverstein took out a $3.5 billion insurance policy on the Twin Towers. A policy that would pay out in the event of a terrorist attack. But without this policy, Larry Silverstein would not have been able to buy the buildings, and the insurance was not just for terrorism. The insurance on Tower 7 dated from 1987, when it was built.
And you don't say, we made the decision to pull it, which refers to something. You wouldn't say that about a group of firemen. You would say, we made a decision to pull them out of the building.
Larry Silverstein denies any involvement in any possible conspiracy. Is there a simpler explanation? The fire chief, who was forced to assume command of New York's rescue operation that day, had narrowly escaped death with the collapse of the South Tower.
It was like the surface of another planet. All there was powdered debris and metal. It was a very strange scene.
Emergency teams scoured the wreckage, desperately searching for survivors, among them hundreds of their own friends and colleagues. At 3 o'clock, with the condition of Tower 7 deteriorating rapidly, Chief Nigro was forced to make an impossible choice.
The biggest decision was to make an evacuation zone around number 7, to pull everyone away, to stop the rescue efforts that were going on, which was very difficult to do because there were people trapped still, and to step back and wait.
But was Larry Silverstein really giving the orders?
We don't need to ask permission from the owner, no. When we're in charge of the building, we're in charge, and that decision would be the fire chief and his alone. That's why I would know that there is no conspiracy, because for me to be a part of that would be obscene. And it disgusts me to even think of it.
It's alleged that it was not just the government, the police and the fire department that conspired to destroy Tower 7. People have also pointed the finger at the media for reporting the building had collapsed when it was still standing.
We are getting information now that one of the other buildings, Building 7, in the World Trade Center complex, is on fire and has either collapsed or is collapsing.
Now, more on the latest building collapse in New York. You might have heard a few moments ago, I was talking about...
Some have suggested the media were handed scripts by the conspirators.
This morning's attacks. We'll probably find out more now about that from our correspondent, Jane Stanley. Jane, what more can you tell us about...
But Tower 7 was still standing behind her.
It almost sounded too far-fetched. Well, unfortunately, I think we've lost the line with Jane Stanley.
At 5:21 p.m., Tower 7 finally collapses. The 47-story skyscraper and its contents are pulverized to dust.
The sixth grader can look at this building falling at virtually free-fall speed, symmetrically and smoothly, and see that it is not a natural process. Buildings that fall in natural processes fall to the path of least resistance. They don't go straight down through themselves.
Tower 7 was a large skyscraper. At 610 feet high, it had 47 floors, each the size of a football field. There were only a few places foundations could be put down because it was built over a subway and an electricity substation. So long beams were needed to take the weight of the building on the east side, on the right here. And it had to be reinforced on the 5th to 7th floors, and also between the 22nd and 24th floors. It had 81 columns, 57 columns around the edge, and 24 core columns inside.
In order for the perimeter to fall perfectly and symmetrically, which it pretty much does at Building 7, all of those columns have to be removed within a tenth of a second of each other. Fire cannot do that. Controlled demolition can.
A structural engineer who's joined Richard Gage's group says he can imagine 1 or 2 columns collapsing.
It is possible that you could have a local failure as a result of a connection failing. But the likelihood of that failure dragging the entire building in such a fashion that all the columns would fail at the same time is an impossibility.
Impossibility?
Yes.
Did Building 7 collapse because of damage from the falling North Tower? Or was it also a controlled demolition?
Loose Change has found one demolition expert with 28 years' experience who thinks he knows what happened. When he was shown the video for the first time, he was taken aback.
Dit is controlled demolition.
Zeker weten.
Zeker weten. Er is nagesprongen. Dit is in opdracht gebeurd. Dit heeft een team gedaan van experts.
Maar dit is ook op 11 september gebeurd.
Weet je dat zeker?
Ja.
Was het zeker weten de 11e? Dat kan geen waar zijn.
7 uur nadat de World Trade Center naar beneden viel.
Ja? Hebben ze hard gewerkt.
But it's not a view shared by other demolition experts. Control Demolition Incorporated is one of the world's leading demolition companies. Mark Loiseau has been in this family business all his life. He knows what it takes to bring a building down.
The largest steel structure we've taken down, which I think is still a Guinness record, is the J.L. Hudson building in Detroit. It took months to design it. It took months to prepare the structure for the placement of the explosive charges. Months. It's noisy. There's just no way to get around it. You go in, you knock out usually all the walls on the floors where you place explosives. Gut them.
Then there's the placing of all the hundreds of explosive charges, plus literally miles of initiating cable and miles more detonating cord.
Is it actually possible to have done a controlled demolition of a building like Building 7 and it to be occupied and no one to have seen anything?
In a screenplay, in a movie, something with Bruce Willis in it, maybe. In reality, no.
But the architect Richard Gage has an answer for that.
It's possible, although this is mere speculation, that the explosives could have been planted prior to each floor being remodeled, or during such remodeling, or even during the initial erection of the building.
So when would that be? What sort of dates would you get into for that?
The building was built in the 80s.
Really? I don't know what to say to that. These explosives have a life expectancy. They have a shelf life. Some of the ones manufactured here in this country, they say use within 3 years. Otherwise, you can't trust them to go off at all.
But what about the sounds of explosions before the collapse? This one was recorded after both of the Twin Towers had collapsed and before Tower 7's collapse.
What's an explosion sound like? Most people don't know because most people have never heard one. So any sharp, loud bang